This is episode number 62, entitled Faith Building with Christi Davis. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I'm so excited you're here. I am going to be sharing an interview that I recently did with a friend of mine, Christi Davis. She is also a certified life coach, and she just has such a way with words, and I'm really excited to share her with you. Christi is a happy wife, a mom to 7 incredible people, a mother-in-law, and a grandma to the cutest kids in all the land. She is a podcaster and an author and a certified life coach. She's an Arizona native who has yet to acclimate to the heat. She loves fresh flowers and soft bed sheets. She doesn't love cockroaches or dirty socks on the kitchen counter. And she feels called to the work of strengthening homes and families by supporting mothers. I think you're really going to enjoy what Christi shares with us today. So here's my interview with Christi Davis. Okay, here we are. I am with Christi Davis, and I met Christi in what year was that? 2021?
Probably 21, yeah.
Yeah,
This was after
2021.
COVID,
It was after COVID at a Latter-day Saint life coach retreat, and it was so fun. And I instantly clicked with Christi. She just
I
has
know, you
such a
just have
warm,
those people, that you
yeah,
click with. And
yes, and you just have such a warmth about you and
oh,
welcoming. So I just
well, I
knew
thought the
you were
same
safe.
about you, so it was a good
You were
fit.
my safe person
Yep.
in this place that I didn't know anyone. So anyway, so I'm going to turn the time over to you, Christi, to just kind of introduce yourself.
Okay.
Tell a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am happily married. I've been married for a lot of years, 26 or 27, something like that. I have 7 children. My oldest is 25 and my youngest is 11. So I have 2 girls first and then 5 boys in a row. My oldest daughter is married and she has 3 kids and they live in our guest house. So we see those kids every day and it's the best thing ever.
Best thing ever.
My second daughter is not married, but she had a baby 3 months ago and she lives in our house. So now I have 4 grandkids and babies everywhere. It's just my favorite. It's so fun. And then I won't go into all the details of what all my kids are doing, but we kind of span the whole thing, everything from elementary school to grandparenting. And I know you talk a lot about seasons, and I feel like I'm in a lot of seasons.
Yeah, you have your hand in a few seasons.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
So I've got that going on, which is my family life is very full and rewarding and kind of a lot. And I'm also a life coach. I'm a certified life coach. So I run my own business and I coach. Mostly I coach on family relationships, and I would say mostly I coach parents of teenagers and young adults.
Yeah. And I love your intro. I don't know if you can just like off the cuff on your podcast, because Christi has a podcast. And I love your intro. It's about like,
let me think. I know one part of it. I said something about family relationships because sometimes the most important relationships in life are the hardest ones to get right.
Yes. And I
think that's so true.
Listen to an episode that I just nod, because it's like the ones we want to work out the most.
Yeah.
Most challenging.
Sometimes the hardest. And maybe there's something to that. Maybe it's supposed to be that way because they're also the relationships that stretch us and teach us the most.
Yeah, I think so. And I've often said, if we're to learn really how to love like the Savior loves, we got to learn to love all kinds of people.
Right. It's got to be hard.
It's got to be hard because think of all the people he has to love.
Yeah. We got to practice.
We got to grow our love. We got to have some stretching. So I just love that little intro. Yeah. So So teenagers, young adults, the
Mhm.
parents of
The
those.
parents of them, yes. And
Okay.
it's funny how many parents I have come to me and say, "Hey, my teenager really needs coaching, or my young adult really needs coaching. Can you help them?" And I'm like, "Well,
Actually,
before we do that, let me start with you." And it's like magic. Like you coach
yeah.
the parent and these teenagers
All of a
maybe don't
sudden.
have as many problems all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. How receptive are they when they say that?
Oh, it depends. I get a wide variety. I have some people that are like, "Oh, no, no, thank you. It really is just her that needs the help."
Yeah. No, no, no,
And
no. It
and
really is.
honestly, if they're not ready for that, like if that's the stage they're at, they're probably not ready for what I would teach them anyway, and so it's fine.
Right. Yeah.
But I do have sometimes where I will coach the parents and coach their kid, which is I love because then they kind of have a shared language. They're learning the same
Yeah.
things from different
Yeah.
angles, and it's really helpful. So I do
Yeah.
actually love that.
Awesome. So let's go back a little bit.
Mhm.
What led you to coaching? I would love to
So
a little
this
bit
is
about
like,
that.
I'll tell you kind of the long version. This goes back to like 2007 or something when my sister and I were going to write a book together. We had decided we needed to write a book together. And she was a little more into it than I was. And so she went ahead and wrote like a little introduction of us and a prologue for us. And she wrote in the introduction of me, Christi is a successful life coach. And at the time, like I didn't even know what a life coach was. I thought it would be cool. Like, I wonder what that is. That seems like something I would like to do, but I didn't know anyone who was a life coach, or I didn't know if you could be successful at it. Anyway, so, and nothing ever came of that book, but it just reminds me that I kind of had that in my head for a long time. And then,
Interesting.
yeah. And then in like 2017, I found Jody Moore. I started listening to her podcast, and everything she taught, I was like, yes, yes, this is already what I believe. This is already what I do. And so I started looking into life coaching, and I looked into how much it would cost to get certified through the life coach school. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Obviously, I'm never going to do that. I don't have that kind of money, but it just would not leave my head. And the only way I can describe it is the spirit was just screaming at me that this is what you are supposed to do, and it's time to do it now. And so I went ahead and did it, and I got certified. And right around that time, I had some real hard things happen with my teenagers, and I was so grateful. It's like Heavenly Father knew the skills I was going to need to really hone in and really develop. And so it's just been perfect timing. If nothing else ever came, if I never made a dollar, my husband actually said this to me, if you never made a dollar as a life coach, what it's done for our family has been 100% worth it. Luckily I've also made a few dollars, and so it's been really helpful, and I love it. I feel like I'm doing God's work,
Yeah.
I'm teaching people some principles and watching their lives and their family relationships change for the better. And I love it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. I think similar to me, it's like I never even thought I didn't have a little seed planted, but it was when it was introduced to me, it was like I thought, no, I can't do that. Like that's for other people. I just want to learn about it.
Yeah.
But the more I learned about it, it just wouldn't leave my brain. And
Yep.
so it's like I'm doing it. So
It's
yeah.
those little nudges that God gives us, I think, that just lead us along to what we're supposed to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
become.
And I feel the same way. I've thought, because for me, I found it just as I was becoming an empty nester.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole other season to navigate that
Yeah.
I had no idea about, right? And
Yeah.
so it really helped me navigate that in a way that is just it's life-changing.
Totally.
Just makes a difference, and regardless of what they're doing, I
Yeah.
just love them and
I feel like the
manage
coaching
myself.
tools that I have learned have allowed me, or like taught me how to use my agency on a whole new level.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the key. And I've thought about that a lot. Like that was the thing we were given was
Yeah.
agency,
It
but
was the
so
thing.
many, it was the thing, the spirit and an agency,
Yeah.
right? And opposition, kind of a
Yeah, that's true.
trifecta, right?
Yep.
But it's like, I don't think we realize how much agency we have.
Yeah.
right? As we're moving through life, we feel like all this stuff is just happening to us and it's out of our control and it's just the way it is. And
Yeah.
once you understand that concept of true agency, then you realize, oh, I have so much more control of
Yeah.
my life than I ever thought I did.
Right. We're taught that we're free to choose our actions. Like I feel like I had a good solid grip on that part. I didn't know I was free to choose how I felt or like really my whole life experience.
Yeah.
We really do have the power to choose our life experience
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
master these tools. So
It's so beautiful. And it's
yeah.
just, I love how Elder is an Elder Raz band that uses divinely designed.
I don't
Or
know.
is it
That sounds like
one?
it fits with him. Like I can hear it in
Yeah.
his voice. So maybe yes.
Divine design. He says that all the time. And it's like, it's divinely designed. This
Yeah.
whole thing of the opposition and the agency
Mhm.
and the gift of the spirit, like they all work in tandem to evolve us into who we were meant to be.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so cool.
It's a really beautiful master plan.
Yeah. So, when you work with the people that you work with, the
Yeah.
parents,
Mhm.
what do you see is their biggest struggle? And one of those you said, like, they think it's their kid's fault. That's
Yeah,
one problem.
I was gonna say, so I'll tell you what they think they're struggling with. The
Okay.
reason that they come to me is usually because there's a strain in the relationship. And moms don't want that. The women, at least the women that come to me, are very intentional parents. They believe in motherhood. They know that this is their most important role and that these relationships are everything to them. They want their family to be happy for all of eternity together, right? And so when they're struggling in these relationships, it feels terrible. It's not what they want. And so they're coming for help with those relationships. Usually they think, at least on some level, they think it's because my kid is acting this way. Maybe they have a kid who is losing their testimony, or they have a kid who is sexually active, or they have a kid who is, struggling with whatever thing, just angry all the time and they don't know why. And they feel like that's the cause of the strain in the relationship, which I get where they're coming from, but it's just there's not much you can do about it as a parent at that point, which is really frustrating as far as fixing the child's problem. But there's a whole world of possibility when we learn what we can do as parents to change the relationship. We have more power in the relationship than we think we have.
Mm-hmm.
We think
Mm-hmm.
we're trying everything and our kid is just pushing us away, but we have so much more power than we think in that relationship.
Yeah. So if you were to expound on that a little bit, like what would you tell a client that they have the power over in that struggling relationship, right? The kid's angry all the time or, going off alone all the time or, pornography or whatever it may be, you know, what do you would tell a parent that feels out of control?
So I feel like when we start digging and digging and digging about what the real problem is for the parent, I feel like so often it boils down to fear.
Mm.
The parent is looking at the choices their child is making and they're afraid of how that's going to turn out. And when we start to be afraid for our child's spiritual or emotional or physical well-being, what we usually do is we kind of get weird. We get a little bit controlling. We start nagging. We start criticizing like we tell ourselves we're trying to help them and trying to correct them. But to them, it feels like we're nagging and we're only pointing out their flaws. And of course, they don't want to be around us when we're like that. And so they push away even more. And so then we just get stuck in this vicious cycle of pushing each other away. And really, what I find is at the root of that cycle so often is fear.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I think as Latter-day Saints, right, we have these fears. We have
Yeah.
a fear of our family not being eternal. We
Hmm.
have these fears that our children are going to choose something other than the gospel.
Right.
These fears that they're going to ruin their life, right?
Yep.
And I don't say that lightly because I felt those
Of
things,
course. Me too.
right? And so it makes sense that we have that fear. Um,
And there's a part of our brains that think that fear is helpful.
Yeah.
It thinks that if I'm thinking ahead of all the things that could go wrong, then it's going to be super helpful, because then I can point out to my child why they're on the wrong path and exactly what's going to happen and what they need to do to change it. It seems like it's going to be helpful.
Yeah.
It's generally not helpful.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes we get confused in our role.
Yes.
As a parent, right?
I agree
Because
with that 100%.
we kind of have this idea like, oh, I'm the parent. I'm nurturing and growing this other human being, and I've got to make sure, got to help steer them in the right direction.
Right.
And it
We
all
have to make
sounds
sure they
good.
turn out okay.
Yeah. And it sounds really great until it's not working.
Right. We have the
Which
best
is fair.
intentions.
Right. If we think it's working, it's because our child is trying to please us.
Right. Or we got lucky. Like my oldest daughter, I thought everything was going so well. I thought my parenting was working great, just because she is the kind of soul who is naturally obedient and loves rules and direction and trusts her parents. Like that, it's just how she came. And
yes,
it was so nice that we got her first.
Yes, I have one of those. It was at the end, though.
Yeah, mine's only the first one so far.
It was like they like the safety of the rules and obedience and all of that, right? They just it's a different experience for them. But yeah, so I think sometimes we confuse our role, and so we really, like you said, we jump in and we try to control from this place of love,
right?
But it's not serving us. It's not strengthening that relationship.
Yeah. So that's one of the first things I try and do with my clients, is just give them the skill of stepping back and looking at it and evaluating, okay, is this working? Is this creating what I was hoping it would create? Generally, if the feeling behind it is fear, it's probably not creating what you wanted to create. It's not good for the relationship, and it's miserable. It's terrible to be afraid and stressed out and worried all the time as a parent. It sucks all the joy out of family life.
Yes. And one of the interviews I recently did, they said, think of the relationship you want in 10 years. Right? Like, what do you see it being like then? And what decisions do you need to make now in order to cultivate that relationship that you want?
So then what do we do about it when we
that is an important part.
Yeah, when we genuinely are fearful. And I think this was summarized beautifully by a cousin of mine. We were talking when one of her kids was just not making her favorite choices, and she said, I have found that whenever I start to worry, whenever my fear gets too big, it's because I've gotten out of balance. She's like, there's always fear in my life and there's always faith in my life. But sometimes my fear gets bigger than my faith. And so rather than trying to diminish her fear, she focuses on building her faith.
Oh, I love
and I have found that is a great approach. When we find ourselves spinning out in fear, what we really need is more faith.
Yeah.
And a focus on building our faith.
So,
and when we talk about faith, I think there's two parts to it that I like to talk about. One is the faith in God, which is where we always start. And this is a huge, important piece. But when we have people that we love that are making choices that we don't love, it's an invitation for us to really test, okay, do I actually believe in God's plan? Because like we talked about, his plan was agency. That was the thing, like the spirit, opposition, and agency. He believed that that was what we needed to become who we were going to become. And so do we trust him that he knows what he's doing? Because he foresaw all of the choices our kids are going to make. Like none of this is going to catch him off guard. None of this is going to surprise or shock him, right?
Yeah, right.
So he had to believe that that was okay. He designed mortality as a very hands-on experience. And we are supposed to be learning by trial and error.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, sometimes that triggers us. We don't want our kids to make big errors.
Well, and I even think like from someone like, you look at your past, right? And maybe some decisions you made and you're like, I want to make it easier for my kid. And it's like,
it sounds so nice.
Why do you do that?
Yeah.
And I've thought that, but it's like we want to provide a better experience and a better that
Yeah.
somehow our way is gonna be better
It's
than
gonna
God's
s
way.
they'll get to skip the hard part. They'll get
Yeah,
to
they can
skip the
skip it.
trial and error part,
Yeah. If I lay it
which
all out perfectly, it'll work
right.
out.
And it
Yeah.
sounds kind of harsh to say it this way, but we're actually interfering sometimes with God's plan.
Yeah.
When we try to take over and manipulate things so that they do what we want them to do, or so we make the choices we think are best for them, we're actually interfering with their eternal learning process if we're not careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the reason why we each have our own body, our own
Mhm.
agency, right? Our own
Yeah,
experiences. It's a very individualized plan.
it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this reminds me of a story. One of my boys in his teenage years was really struggling with pornography. It's just a habit he couldn't seem to kick. And I had offered him some resources. There are online programs that I really like. I can hover over you. I can try and, he already didn't have internet access on his smartphone. Like we had put guardrails in place, all the ones we knew how to put in place. He was finding it anyway because they can. Anyway, I was asking him, I said, it feels to me like, that scene in Cars, the first Cars movie, where Lightning McQueen is trying to go around the dirt track and he slides off into the cactus
Yes.
and Doc is trying to tell him how to do it right. And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna figure this out. And so he just keeps trying and he keeps going over the edge. So I told my son, this is what it seems like is happening to me. Like you're so determined to do this your own way that you keep sliding off that dirt edge. And if you let me, I can teach you. I can help you. I can put some guardrails up so you don't. And he's like, you know what, Mom? I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm going to do it my own way. I might go over that edge lots of times, but I'm going to figure it out my own way. I was like, heaven help me. Okay. But you know what? He did. He figured it out himself. It took him a while and he learned so much in the process. And I feel like that's one of his strong points now. He ended up serving a mission and he is just killing it at life right now. He's starting his own business. He's dating a great girl. He's super open about pornography and the things that he learned through that time, which has been such a blessing to his younger brothers and to like everyone.
Right.
And I'm so glad he did it his way. He learned what he needed to learn, not what I needed him to learn, but what he
Yeah.
needed to learn.
Yeah. So that he could be in a place to serve God.
Yeah.
Right? Like that learning created such a opportunity for him to develop a talent, a skill, whatever you want to
Yep.
call it,
Yep.
to share that gift with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
such a valuable process for him that we talk about it openly now, and
yeah.
he's so glad that he's learned what he's
Yeah.
learned and can share it with
Well,
other people.
and don't you think that when we can recognize, like, no, we're actually meant to goof up. Like we
Yeah,
really are.
that actually is the plan.
That is the plan. That was the plan, right?
Yeah.
The other plan that got voted out was the no do wrong, right?
Mhm.
Like not
Right?
doing wrong. And so you just think when we can like, it just kind of loosens it. And it's like, oh, okay, this is part of the plan. And so the grip doesn't have to be so tight on
Yes.
us or them.
Yes.
And it's just like, then you can talk about these things openly because there's not shame behind it.
Right. It's just so liberating. It's
Yeah.
so much more fun when we learn how to loosen our grip. We are more free for joy. We're more free for connection. We're more free to, I think the spirit speaks to us better when we're
Mhm.
not afraid.
Yes, definitely.
And also, I think that we accidentally send a message when our kids see us, like we teach and teach and teach about Jesus and about the atonement, right? And we want them to learn about the atonement and to take advantage of it.
The
Yes,
perfection side.
right. But if they see us being terrified for them to make mistakes, what is that actually teaching them about our faith in the atonement?
Yeah.
That it has
Not very
limits,
much.
that we don't actually trust it 100%.
Yeah.
I think one of the most powerful ways we can teach about the atonement and testify of the atonement is to loosen our grip and not be so afraid for our kids to make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So yeah, so the antidote is to increase our faith,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
right?
And it's, we always want to know, like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
We know.
We've been taught.
We have been taught, and it
Yeah.
seems like basic, and maybe we want something fancier, but it really
Yeah.
is spending time with him.
Yeah.
Because how do you trust somebody that you don't spend any time with?
Yeah. How do you know
Ever.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've thought a lot about this over the course of, like, I just reflect on President Nelson's presidency, right? And
Yeah.
we've just seen leaps and bounds of change and increased revelation, right? And I just remember during, like, COVID had hit and the Come Follow Me had come out
Mm-hmm.
before that, right? And
That
I
was
just
just
remember,
amazing timing.
yeah, and it was just like, yeah, we've seen things like 20 years ago. We're like, yeah, that's why this is in place. No, this was like in a matter of a year
Yeah.
that we could see its value. And now looking even, from this perspective, like the church has put in place this resource to really get us in the word of
Yes.
God, right?
Yes.
It's such a
President Nelson
real
knows our
level.
faith needs building.
He does. And he's like, eat your vitamins. And
Yeah.
we'll see, like, he is really trying his darndest
Yeah.
to prepare us. And I just think for me personally, my faith has increased because of just the focus that has and the
Yeah.
revelation that's been given on
Yeah.
building that relationship with our Savior and all the things that are available to us.
Yeah. A story that comes to mind for me is the one of Peter, because we've read it fairly recently. Peter
Mm-hmm.
walking on the water. Like, he had faith in Jesus, right? He had enough faith that he started walking on the water.
Yeah.
And then as long as his focus was on Jesus, he was okay. But when he got distracted by the wind and the waves and he took his focus off the Savior, that's when he started to sink.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens when we spend our valuable brain energy worrying about all the things that could go wrong for our children.
Mm-hmm.
That's like us focusing on the wind and the waves, and we're going to sink.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to bring our focus back to trusting in the Savior.
Yeah. And isn't that, like, something came to my mind as you were saying that, like, the wind and the waves will always be there.
Yep. And they're going to just get more and more
They're
intense
just gonna,
as our kids
yeah,
get
they're
older.
just gonna, right? They're just gonna happen. And so
Yeah.
worrying about the waves and the wind isn't gonna stop them from
It
happening.
is not. It is
Yeah.
not.
So the only thing that really can save us is our focus on him, our relationship with him. So I love that analogy. That's
And
so,
luckily, he's really good at his job. Like, he is mighty to save. He is
yeah.
really good at cleaning up messes that kids make,
Yes. Yes.
ourselves included. Right?
Yes. Because we're making mistakes all the time too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's universal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah. I think it's like, I grew up in a time where we learned about, trusting God, loving God, but do we really believe him?
Yes.
Do we believe that
we believe in him?
Yeah, we believe in him, but do we believe really what he's saying he'll do, that he will do what he says he will do?
I
think he will.
I feel like teenagers and young adult children maybe are the test of that. Like,
Yes.
like, okay, we've been teaching it and believing it for a long time. Now we're going to really put it to the test.
Yes.
Do I actually trust him?
Do I actually? Yeah. As we all should.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
it's a super important stage for all of us to get to.
Yeah. It's like, what do I really believe?
Yeah.
And what am I willing to step into to find out what I really believe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the faith in God that I think is obviously the foundation of everything. I also think there's such a thing as faith in our kids that sometimes we forget about. And it's not the same, because when people say, well, how can I have faith in my kid when he's clearly headed off the deep end or whatever? I don't mean faith that our kids will never make any mistakes. Of course, that's unreasonable, but we can still have faith in their goodness and faith that we want the same things. We want for them to be happy and successful and well-balanced and all the things. They are good. Like, deep at their core, they are good and they want to be happy, and they're going to try and get there. Like, it's going to be trial and error for them, just like it has been for us, but we can have faith in their ability to choose for themselves and to figure out life and to be happy and successful, thriving people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that we do lose sight of that, just faith that they're going to navigate this how they're meant to.
Yeah, and that they're capable of figuring it
And they're
out.
totally capable to figure it out.
And
Yeah.
I think more than we realize, our kids actually take cues from us, even when they're teenagers and they pretend like they're not listening and they don't want to hear anything we have to say. They're still picking up on our vibe. And if
Mhm.
our vibe is, I'm afraid because I don't think you're capable of succeeding at this, I think you're going to do it all wrong, that's the message we're sending to them, which is the exact opposite of helpful.
And then they're interpreting that, right? They're taking that in and maybe forming beliefs
About
based on
themselves.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that what we want their belief in themselves based on? Right? We
No.
want them to
So
believe
it's like
they
heartbreaking
can
to
do
think about
everything.
that.
Yeah, like we want them to know that they can do anything. I have
Yeah.
one of my kids is probably the glass half empty kind of kid. And I just want him to see how amazing he is.
Yeah.
I want him to trust him. And he's
Yeah.
yeah, and whatever messaging, and it's probably some I've given him because he's older.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
it's all my fault. I know it. Uh, but I just think that, yeah, I can totally see that in that child of mine where
Mhm.
they have formulated a belief in themselves
Yeah.
based on, maybe how I've shown up, how other people have in their life,
Yeah.
right?
Based on lots of different
Lots of different things.
input factors, but
They don't have that faith in themselves. And so, yeah, what can we do to encourage that, right? How
yeah.
can we encourage that? Well, by having faith in them.
Yes.
That's it.
Even when we have no evidence yet. Because
Yes.
that's what faith is, right? It's believing in
Yeah.
things that we can't yet see. We can
Yeah.
choose on purpose. We can give ourselves permission to see our child with an eye of faith,
Yeah.
even if we don't have any proof yet.
Yeah. I love that. We don't have to have proof or
Mm-mm.
evidence that they can do it,
Yeah.
that we can have faith in them.
So I have a good story about this too.
Okay.
So I had one of my kids who, when he was a young teenager, he had ADHD and we didn't know it at the time, but he really started to struggle in school and he was just getting kind of negative feedback from all over the place when he had a hard time focusing or paying attention and people thought he was being disrespectful or lazy or whatever. He just really started to, it took a toll on his self-esteem. And he was angry and he was like, his whole personality was changing and it was so painful for me to watch. And so this went on for a while. And after a while of watching him kind of tank, I started to get sucked into that hopelessness too. Like, oh my gosh, maybe this kid isn't going to succeed. Maybe, and I
Yeah.
started to just be so kind of afraid for him. And right around that time, President Nelson gave a talk about miracles. And he suggested we seek for and expect miracles. And so I decided that's what I was going to do. I was going to just believe, even though I had no reason to believe, I was going to believe that a miracle would happen in this child's life. And I didn't have like an agenda. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I had no proof that it was true, but I decided to believe that a miracle would happen and that he would be okay and that he would be successful. So it took some practice, but I on purpose cultivated that belief and I would pray about it and I would meditate about it and I just would practice seeing his future with an eye of faith. Well, just a few months into that, we had this random guy in our ward reach out to him, totally took him under his wing, invited him for the summer to come live and work at the ranch that he ran. And I was like, this kid who only wants to play video games and like, no way is he going to survive the ranch. He went to the ranch and loved it and completely turned his life around. Like he all of a sudden started to see his own value. His self-esteem was like, he's like, Mom, they treat me like an adult. I'm doing the work of a full-grown man. Felt so good about himself. It was a complete turning point. So that seemed to me like such an obvious miracle that came because I had faith in it, because I was looking for it and expecting to see it. and it happened. I think that was like a trial of my faith that was blessed with a miracle. And I know that I have other trials in my life that have not had such direct miracles, but I don't know that I would have even seen that if I weren't looking for and expecting miracles.
Yeah. Yeah. Expect miracles. I love that. Well, and I think that just, if we're expecting a miracle, that's changing our focus too. That is in a way focusing on him.
Right.
Because it's like,
Instead of the wind and waves now, instead of spinning out in our brain over how is this possibly going to work out? I can't see any way that this is going to be okay. We're just looking, all right, I know the miracle's coming. I wonder what it's going to look like.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to see.
Yes. It's so much more of a fun way to live.
Yes.
Expectation of
and miracles. It's like, and for whatever reason, there's those moments, right? Or people we work with and even ourselves that we feel like it's better to be miserable.
Right.
That's more responsible.
Right. Isn't that funny? But yeah, I have had that thought. No, it seems more responsible to worry and to stress.
Yeah, I gotta be concerned.
Be serious about this.
Yeah. It's like, no, come on. Let's not. Yeah. I love that.
That kid though, like it wasn't all smooth sailing from there. He ended up dropping out of high school and like he's had to figure out what he's gonna do. And there was a time a conversation we had where he came to me and he's like, Mom, maybe I mean, what am I thinking? Maybe I'm not gonna be able to handle it. And me, having already done the work, I was like, are you kidding me? Look at this. Look at what you've done. Look at your people skills. Look at all the reasons that we have to believe that you're going to be totally successful. And I could watch him sit up straighter and he's like, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I can do this.
Yeah. You know, and that's
such a to give to our kids.
I was going to say that's such a beautiful gift to be that person of having faith in them that they can kind of lean on that for a time as they're trying to navigate that for themselves. Yeah. Because what if we weren't? What if we didn't have faith?
Who would be that for them?
Who would be that? Yeah. I love that.
I have decided that is one of my favorite jobs as a mother and my most important jobs as a mother is to believe in my kids no matter what.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, I just think that's so beautiful. And as you were thinking about it, maybe this is your next step, but as you were talking about the faith in your kids and faith in God, I think that lends to faith in self.
Absolutely.
Ourself, right? Because we're the mom for the job.
Yep.
We're their mom for a reason. And we can have faith that we'll know how to handle it.
Yes.
Even in the hard times.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I love that thought that I will know the right thing to do. I will know the right thing to say. I am the right person for this job.
Yeah.
And that again, it always goes back to faith in God. Like, okay, Heavenly Father must know what he's doing. He sent this child to me for a reason. Yeah. Therefore, he must believe in me. Therefore, I can believe in myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he has faith in us.
Yeah.
So it's like this. It's all connected. It's just all connected. And again,
it really is just a way of living in faith, living with an eye of faith. Once we cultivate an eye of faith, then it's like a lens we put on that now we see everything through an eye of faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a better way to live.
Right.
Right.
It's so much more fun. It's so much more joyful.
Yeah.
And I love seasons of joy. I love your,
that's what and really like for me, that is the joy. The joy is the hard. And the good. Like that's what creates joy for me is just navigating the opposition and the happiness, like everything that's intertwined. That's what creates the joy. Right.
Joy is not easy. But it is deep and rich and fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like part of your soul, right? Like I think happiness is kind of I don't know.
Something that you try on sometimes. Yeah, and it's like, it comes and it goes. But
yeah. Or you laugh at a joke or whatever, right? It's funny, but it's like joy is that experiential knowledge of the good and the bad or the opposition and the beautiful. Or I'm not as articulate as you, Christi.
I'm not either. I think it's a way we can choose to live, to just live in joy.
Yeah. And I think you said it perfectly, a way of life. I was just recently in Hawaii and I picked up this book and I can't pronounce it. It's a Hawaiian word
Oh,
but it's the word stands for the Hawaiian prayer. That's I'm sorry, I forgive you,
yes, I've heard that one.
right?
And I love you or something like that.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, thank you and I love you.
Yeah.
Right? But in this book it's a way of living. It is a way of life. And I think when we can approach like I think part of what you were saying is just we do mess up sometimes. We don't get it all right. Like all of it is part of a way of life and just learning to forgive and love and have faith and
I think that's maybe one of the
all
most important things that we're supposed to be learning is how to live in joy.
no matter what's going on around
Right.
us. Right. And
Because
that's
I mean, Heavenly Father, if we look to him as our ultimate goal and our ultimate example, if we want to be like he is someday, we're told that's a fullness of joy. And yet we can look and see all of his children and all the chaos
yeah.
that's going on amongst his children.
Yes.
He has to have learned how to choose on purpose to live in joy. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So our time, I can't believe how fast it's
I know,
gone.
time
My
flies.
gosh. Okay. So I just have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
One is, I want you to tell about your book.
Oh, yes.
This is going to come out. This will probably come out before your book comes out, but
Yeah.
why not get the word out there already? So say the name. What's it about?
I'm so excited about this book. It just has felt like a real, again, just guided by the Spirit, It's called The Power of a Faithful Mother. And my intent is to share some of the things that I have learned so hard by trial and error with other mothers to encourage them in their journey, because it can be discouraging, I think, when you see kids making hard decisions. Like, it's easy to feel defeated and to get down. And so this is meant to uplift and empower mothers using really solid gospel principles and some coaching tools and,
Yeah.
to help us to have more faith and to realize where our real power and our real influence comes from.
I love that. I think there's such a need for that. So I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
And for my listeners, Christi has written a couple of articles, at least 2 that I've read recently in LDS Living,
Mm-hmm.
and they are so good. I will try to put a link to those in the show notes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that would be fun. I was going to say, I hope she doesn't ask me how to find them, because I don't even know. I'd
No,
have
they're
to
on
Google them.
LDS Living. So we'll get some links in there.
Okay, great.
And then finally, just how can people find you if they want to learn more about you and maybe work with you? Like,
yeah,
where can they
so
find
I
you?
have a website. It's nothing special, but I do have a website. I think maybe the easiest way to find me is on Instagram.
Okay.
It's Christi Davis Coaching, and it's spelled CHRISTI. So Christi Davis Coaching. And I don't have I'm not an everyday poster or anything like that, but I do have a presence there. So if you just want to send me a DM and I can find you that way. Or another really good way to kind of get to know my style is to listen to my podcast, which is called Liking the People You Love.
Yeah, it is so good. And I'm trying to think, a few months ago, one of my friends was struggling and you had just done a podcast episode just on the exact thing.
Oh.
And I wish I could tell you what it was right now.
Perfect.
But I sent her, I think I sent 2 of yours to her to listen to.
Thank you for sharing.
And it really helped her. So
it's interesting how often when I sit down, like, okay, it's time to do another podcast, and I just try and tune in and ask Heavenly Father, what do you want me to talk about? It's really interesting how often there's something specific. And I know there's somebody out there that needs that. And so thank you for sharing that little feedback with me.
It's so good. And I just think you have a way with words.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. So anyway, but thank you so much for being here, Christi. It's been so fun.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.